Welcome to A Better HR Business, the podcast that looks at how HR consultants and HR tech firms grow their businesses and how they help their employers to get the best out of their people. Remember, for show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Okay, let's get started.
Hello, welcome back to the show. Thanks for joining me again. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. I'm joined by Jenna Hinrichsen. Jenna is from the recruitment process outsourcing company Advanced RPO, and they've had massive growth. They rank amongst the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing private companies in the US. As I said, rapid growth with constant new hires, and if I'm correct, I'm thinking continual revenue, record-breaking months. So lots to unpack here, and I'm delighted to have you along today, Jenna. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, really looking forward to the chat. Can you start by perhaps giving us your background, and then we can feed into actually what does Advanced RPO do?
Sure. So I have roughly 22 years of experience in the recruiting space, some of that HR, corporate side, and some of that is staffing. And some of that is now RPO. So I've really been on all sides of the recruitment fence, if you will. And then 12 years of that has been really in leadership within recruiting. I would also say that one of my biggest strengths is being a problem solver. So I consider myself a serial problem solver. I love a good challenge.
Nice. Very good. And tell us about Advanced RPO. What do you guys do, and what are the typical kinds of clients that you work with, or customers, sorry?
Sure. At a high level, again, it's recruitment process outsourcing. And we really work with customers from all different industries and backgrounds. There's not a certain type of customer that we wouldn't necessarily entertain or talk to. It's really more about getting a good fit, right? Does this customer mesh well with what we do and offerings that we have. And so really meeting our customers where they're at, and creating solutions that fit their needs. So really we work with companies in all industries. We don't take every customer that comes in, and we certainly evaluate what kind of partnerships we're looking at. But if the business makes sense, if it doesn't fit into our, quote unquote core model, we're not going to walk away from something if it would be a good partnership for us and for the client.
Got it. That makes sense. And for people who are outside the States, just 30-second overview, what exactly is an RPO?
Sure. So again, from a high level perspective, it's recruitment process outsourcing. So we can do anything from end to end recruitment, meaning attracting, identifying candidates for a customer, working those candidates through the process. And then we have customers that we even do the offer and onboarding with. And so it really is dependent on what the customer needs. But we can do it all steps of hiring end to end. And then with each customer, again, it's slightly different based on their particular needs.
Oh. And are there any particular use cases or scenarios or problems that you guys solve for customers, such as, graduate recruitment or construction projects that go on and off? Are there any types of use cases that sort of come to the fore?
Yeah. So again, if there's not an internal recruiting department per se, then a company might work with an organization like ours to handle all of their recruiting end to end. But we work with a lot of customers that have their own internal recruiting function and are looking for help in specific areas, specific skill sets that they're having a hard time attracting. So we can come in certain departments. And then also elevating talent. We work with customers that, get a lot of, based on their brand, get a lot of referrals and applicants, but the level of talent that they're driving or that they're attracting isn't necessarily meeting all of their needs. And so we're able to come in and really understand where they're falling short and what they need help with, and creating solutions for them as well. And then things like ramp ups. So if a company is, they're not going to be hiring 1,000 people every month for forever, but maybe they need to hire that many people in the next 3 months, and they're not going to hire a full-time recruiting team to do that, we're able to come in and help with those types of solutions as well.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So am I right in thinking that the RPO industry is a pretty tough, competitive sector of the market? And then if that's the case, how do you position the business in that market?
It is. So a lot of people kind of group all of that together, right? Recruiting, staffing, it's all one thing. And so positioning that in the market can be tough if you're sticking to a traditional RPO at all times only, because it doesn't always fit the customer's needs. So we really work to meet customers where they're at. So we're able to solve different hiring challenges, right? We can do everything again from end to end for recruitment process outsourcing, but that's not necessarily the best way to position ourselves because it sort of boxes us in. And we want customers to know that, and customers and prospects to know that we can meet them where they're at and work with them on multiple solutions. Maybe we move toward a full RPO model, but maybe they're not ready or built for that yet. And that's okay. We can still work with customers like that too. So we're fairly open in that regard.
Right. So your offering is certainly a holistic offering, but modular at the same time. So if they don't need the whole works, then they can take a piece of the process and use that. Is that a fair call?
Correct. If that makes sense for our business, makes sense for their business. Yes, it's a lot of times it's hard to kind of fit into another company's model, whether you're selling, whether it's technology or a solution service. And so we have a model that works well, but we are flexible within that model, to work with our customers and to meet their specific needs.
Got it. Okay. And can you tell us a bit about the growth of advanced RPO? Have you grown quickly and how have you done it?
Yeah, so we've had obviously with the pandemic, there's been some crazy back and forth stuff going on over the past couple of years, but we actually grew pretty substantially through the time of the pandemic. We had customers obviously shifted the way they were doing business, and we had to shift with them, right? We had to everybody had to throw everything up in the air and kind of figure out how to move forward from there. So we were really able to come in and, take on some challenges that maybe competitors weren't able to come in and complete or to take, and really work specifically, to meet those individual needs, which then have grown into bigger opportunities for us, right? We take something that somebody else, whether it's the internal organization or another competitor wasn't able to deliver on, we're able to come in and show the client that we can do that. And that tends to lead to more opportunity for us. So we had a lot of that. And we had a lot of volume hiring, which then requires us to hire a lot more people on our end as well. So yes, it's definitely, we're in growth mode and continue on that uptick, which we're very excited about.
Yeah, that's really good to hear that you had that growth during the pandemic, because some people listening might be a bit surprised by that. Let's say, if that's the case, if you're listening to this, go and check out the getmorehrclients.com blog. There's an article on there called The State of the HR Industry, and there's about 100 different company business leaders there from the HR industry describing if they're up or down flat since the pandemic hit. And yeah, advanced RPO certainly sounds like one that's taken it in its stride and grown so quickly. So how have you met and acquired these new customers?
Through referrals, through current customers, through we have the Clearly Rated Award, which is a client feedback award. So always when you're given an award as an organization, it's exciting, but when it's coming from client feedback, it's always great to have that. We have customers that we've worked with in one organization and maybe went to work for another organization. So then they bring us along, and have us work with them in that organization. And then we work with large organizations too that have, contacts in different areas of the business that maybe we're not working or managing the whole recruitment process for the organization, but maybe for a couple of key areas. And then customers will move into other parts of the business and bring us with them there, or refer us to other parts of the business, if you will. So it is a lot of referrals and based on, going out there and delivering results.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the referral side of things, do you do that actively or passively? So on the active side, I mean, do you formally ask for referrals, or is there a process that encourages or facilitates referrals, or is it more of a do a good job and hopefully they tell others about it? What's your advice to others?
Yeah, that's a really good question. From a client standpoint, there is a fine line there. So that is more passive. And our focus really is to come in and wow them. And that's what generates the referrals versus having to ask for them. We've learned that organically generates referrals for us versus having that talk track where you're asking for them. Well, you may do that with candidates, but from a client standpoint, it's more passive.
Okay. Yep. So success breeds success and breeds referrals as well.
Exactly.
And tell us about the thought leadership side of things, because I know you're very active in the field personally. So you're on the Forbes Human Resource Council and I think Newsweek's Expert Forum. You're very busy. How'd you get onto those, and what kind of information do you share there?
Correct. So I started a couple of years ago. I had a goal with my leaders that to really get into thought leadership and to be visible and engaged in the industry and out in the business realm. And so I started a little mini blog or micro blog, I guess you could call it, called the Recruiting Reel, where I was sharing tips. I found a spot in the market from my perspective that was not being tapped into from a thought leadership perspective. Everything felt so video driven, or click here and read this 10-page article. There was a lot of work involved, and there was an excess amount of that. And so I found myself kind of scrolling through, gosh, I only have 10 minutes. So where do I even start to get this content? So my little microblog, if you will, was putting content in front of people that was accessible right on their newsfeed through an image. There's no clicking on anything or having to read any paragraphs, watch any videos or whatever. It was just little bites of information and tips. And that really took off. People really responded to that. And I got a lot of visibility on LinkedIn through that. That then led to Forbes reaching out and asking me to join the Human Resources Council, which has been awesome. I get to work with and network with a lot of other HR leaders in different industries, and it's been a huge learning experience, but also great networking. And then that being on that council and writing articles in Forbes and being on expert panels there then led to the Newsweek Expert Forum, which is another great learning opportunity and networking. This one's focused a little bit more on business, but I'm able to bring that HR spin to it. So yeah, I'm really excited about those and where they're going, and future opportunity and more articles.
Brilliant. Maybe we'll see a TV show from you in the near future.
I hope so.
Yeah, going global. I like it. But a couple of things stand out for me from there. One is on the corporate side. So I think it was episode 47 on this podcast. I was talking to Scott Miller from the Franklin Covey company, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People company. And they have, I think, either 8 or 12 designated thought leaders. And there's a whole effort behind that. Each person publishes a book or books. They're on podcasts, but it's such a coordinated effort as a way of spreading the word about the company, Franklin Covey, and all the services, etc., as a flow on. So you can do that at the corporate level, and it has such a powerful effect. And you see all the big players in the HR industry doing it, absolutely. At the individual level, it doesn't just happen. You don't just get onto the Forbes Council or the Newsweek. I love the fact that you started with a blog and it built from there and built the connections. And I think people kind of misinterpret the process. Sometimes they just assume, oh, why can't I get onto these big councils? Why haven't they called me? But you worked your way there, right?
Right. There's definitely, you've got to have a passion for it, right? You've got to find what is your information or your topic that you want to share, and how do you want to share it? And then who's your audience? So you've really got to figure that out. But I mean, it's funny because it can seem extremely overwhelming. Oh gosh, how would you ever get on like writing articles for Newsweek? But if you can find that niche, like I did, finding that gap where, for me, it was frustrating because everything felt overwhelming. I don't have time to spend 6 hours on LinkedIn every day. So what if I want to just get some good updates on things without having, I have 10 minutes and I want to get as much information and intel as I can. I wasn't getting what I needed. So if you find a gap like that and see something that is missing, kind of stepping into that. I wasn't doing anything revolutionary. I had no, marketing behind me building these great graphic images. It was literally me creating an image with text on it and putting it on LinkedIn, right? So it doesn't take fancy skills and a big team behind you. It's really finding that spot in the market or a niche where you're maybe not getting what you need or you feel like you can really contribute, and then honing in on that.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. There's some great advice there for listeners, that's for sure. So we've talked about referrals and customer success, thought leadership. So your company and you personally have done so much. What's your advice to people when it comes to growing a successful HR business?
You have to look at customers independently, right? So whether it's internal customers or external customers, no customer is alike. So I think my opinion is that boxed solutions just don't work these days. And so if you can have a solution or a foundation for your solution that encompasses the things that you can do to help an organization, but you're willing to be flexible and fluid within that, I think that's what is going to allow HR, whether it's internal, growing internal business relationships or external, that's what's going to allow you to grow. You've got to have a foundation, right? You can't just go out there and say, whatever you need me to do, I'll do. But if you're trying to sell exactly what you're doing, specifically step by step into an organization, it's about 99.9% likely that whole solution is not going to fit. And then that turns off customers. So being a little bit more open about how you can help them in different ways and maybe building up to that overall piece that you're trying to target, but not coming in and like forcing your whole solution on a client. I think that turns people off and pushes them away when really you could help them maybe in a couple of key areas.
Nice. Yeah, that's great advice. Absolutely. So if I can ask you to pull out the crystal ball and look into the future, what does the future hold for HR and the world of work?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one because 2020 obviously proved that anything and everything can happen, right? So all the things we thought would never happen or wouldn't happen did. And what's good about that, I think, is that everybody at the same time was really forced to shift, right? Everything kind of turned upside down for everybody. So everybody's in the same boat. But I think the key in the future is being flexible. Again, kind of going back to what we were just talking about in having your foundation, whether it's an individual of what you're able to do or an organization of what you're able to do, a department within an organization, what you're able to do, but being flexible within that. And then having a good blend of work and life, right? So I think the future or the past has been somewhat separate. You've got your work and then you've got your personal life, and those are separate, and there's reasons to separate those. But with the pandemic, things have really become more blended, and I see some of that going back, but a lot of it not, right? It's intertwined now. So making sure that that there is flexibility for employees and that there's a good balance, and that's just part of the future. So really embracing that as a leader, as a company, as an employer, embracing that those things are coming together more and more.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. So you've covered so much ground here. It's a brilliant track record for Advanced RPO and for you personally. So if people want to learn more about Advanced RPO, whether that's to refer customers to you or to become a partner or just become a client in the end, what's your advice, or where should they go next?
So you can find us online at advancedrpo.com. We're also on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook, so you can find us in any of those locations and reach out to us directly, follow along, and then I'm on LinkedIn as well. So we try to be as visible as possible.
Very good. Okay, well, as always, we'll have the links in the show notes for you to listen, for you to check out if you're on the road. All right, well, Jenna, thank you very much for sharing your story and the Advanced RPO story. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is great.
Thanks for joining us today on A Better HR Business, the podcast that explores the world of HR consulting and HR tech businesses. For show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Remember to subscribe and share the show with any friends who are busy growing a HR business. Thanks, and see you next time.